Harry also told the paper he wants to spend more time in the UK and that the focus over the next year, quote, really has to be on my dad.
London, January 22nd, 2026. The courtroom doors swing open, and what walks out isn't just legal testimony. It's a family unraveling in real time before the world's eyes. Inside that courtroom, Prince Harry has just delivered some of the most shocking allegations ever leveled against his own family. He's accused his brother of betrayal. He's claimed Princess Catherine, yes, the future Queen of England, personally blocked his inheritance from Princess Diana's will. And he's done all of this under oath, in public, with cameras rolling and the world watching. But here's what makes this moment different from every other royal scandal you've ever witnessed. Buckingham Palace just broke decades of tradition to respond. And when they did, the message was clear, final, and absolutely devastating. Are you ready to see how the monarchy just drew a line in the sand that Harry may never be able to cross back over? The palace breaks, its silence, and it's brutal. For generations, the British royal family has lived by one unshakable rule: never complain, never explain. They've weathered scandals, divorces, even death without breaking that code. But on January 22nd, late in the afternoon, Buckingham Palace released a statement so rare, so deliberate, that royal watchers immediately knew something had fundamentally changed. Here's what it said: "The Crown does not participate in disputes born of personal grievance. We acknowledge no involvement in the proceedings currently before the High Court, and we will not be drawn into commentary regarding internal family matters when they are weaponized in public forums." Read that again. Weaponized in public forums. This wasn't a defensive statement. This wasn't damage control. This was the monarchy formally declaring, "Harry, you're on your own." The statement was authorized by both King Charles III and Princess Anne, two figures who represent the past and future of royal duty. And if you think that's where it ended, you haven't met Princess Anne yet. In a supplementary briefing at St. James's Palace, the Princess Royal, known for her no-nonsense approach to everything, delivered what can only be described as a verbal knockout punch. "The Crown serves the nation, not itself," she said. "We do not litigate our values, nor outsource our sense of responsibility to courtrooms or tabloids. Those who step away from that path do so by their own will, not by royal design." Then came the hammer blow. To imply that the Princess of Wales or any member of this family interfered with a deceased mother's will, with no evidence, no hearing, no private discussion, is not only false, it is disgraceful. This institution will not legitimize delusion by dignifying it. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you heard a senior royal call out a family member's claims as delusion? When was the last time the palace didn't just stay silent, but actively pushed back? This isn't just a statement, it's a declaration of war. Diplomatic, calculated, and absolutely final. What Harry actually said in court, and why it backfired spectacularly. So what exactly did Prince Harry say that triggered this unprecedented response? The atmosphere was already tense. Harry had been on the stand for nearly 3 hours. His legal team, what was left of it after the dramatic collapse just weeks before, was trying to keep him focused on the actual case, alleged press intrusion by associated newspapers. But Harry had other plans. During his testimony in Windsor versus Associated Newspapers Limited, a case that was supposed to be about press privacy, Harry veered dramatically off script. He didn't just talk about journalists. He talked about his family, and not in passing, not as background context. He made them central to his narrative of victimhood. The courtroom went silent when he first mentioned William. Court reporters stopped typing. Sketch artists looked up from their pads, because everyone knew this was the moment the case stopped being about newspapers and became about something much more personal. He accused Prince William of moral cowardice for refusing to help him find new legal counsel after his entire legal team collapsed just 2 weeks before trial. "I turned to my brother in good faith," Harry said on the stand, his voice tight with emotion. but I was met with silence. The way Harry told it, this was betrayal. This was his brother, the person who should have had his back, turning away in his moment of need. That line went viral instantly. Within hours, it was trending on social media. Supporters of Harry called it heartbreaking. Critics called it manipulation. But here's what Harry didn't tell the courtroom, and what palace insiders quickly clarified to select journalists on background. William didn't refuse out of spite. He refused because getting involved would have violated institutional boundaries that have protected the monarchy for centuries. Think about it this way. Prince William is the heir to the throne. He represents the institution of the monarchy itself. If he had stepped in to help Harry find legal representation in an active lawsuit against a major newspaper, even just by making a phone call or a recommendation, it would have created a massive conflict of interest. The palace would be seen as taking sides in a legal battle between a private citizen, yes, that's what Harry is now, and a media organization. It would compromise the monarchy's political neutrality. It would open the door to accusations that the royal family uses its influence to interfere in legal proceedings. In other words, William did exactly what a future king is supposed to do. He protected the institution, even when it hurt personally. A former legal advisor to the palace put it this way: had the Prince of Wales intervened in any form, even to recommend a solicitor, it would have opened the door to accusations of royal interference. William's refusal wasn't personal, it was institutional. But in Harry's telling, it was just another example of how his family had abandoned him. Another data point in the narrative he's been building since he left royal life, that he's the victim, and they're the villains. And the courtroom ate it up. The press benches were full. Every word was being transcribed, tweeted, analyzed. But Harry didn't stop there. In fact, what came next was even more explosive. He went on to claim that Princess Catherine, one of the most beloved figures in modern British history, had actively blocked him from receiving what he called Clause 3 in Princess Diana's sealed will. Let me repeat that, because it's important. Harry accused the future Queen of England of interfering with his dead mother's inheritance. He provided no documents to support this claim. No letters, no legal filings, no testimony from executors or lawyers involved in Diana's estate, no evidence whatsoever, just an accusation, delivered under oath, that Catherine had somehow conspired to keep Harry from his mother's legacy. The gasps in the courtroom were audible. Even hardened court reporters, people who've covered murders, terrorism trials, the most shocking cases imaginable, looked stunned. Because what Harry had just done was take one of the most sacred, painful moments in royal history, the death of Princess Diana, and weaponize it. He turned his mother's will into ammunition in a legal battle that had nothing to do with her, and he aimed it directly at Catherine, a woman who never even met Diana, who married into this family years after Diana's death, who has spent more than a decade earning the public's trust through quiet, dedicated service. The timing couldn't have been worse for Harry. Catherine's approval ratings are at an all-time high. Recent polls show 78% of Britons view her favorably, higher than any royal has polled since Queen Elizabeth II during her Diamond Jubilee. She's become the embodiment of what people want from the modern monarchy: accessible but dignified, relatable but regal, human but still royal. And Harry just accused her of stealing from his dead mother. Do you see what just happened? Harry took a lawsuit about press intrusion and turned it into a public trial of his own family. He made it personal. He made it about betrayal, about inheritance, about old wounds that should have been dealt with privately. And the problem? He brought emotion instead of evidence. Legal experts watching the proceedings were shaking their heads, because in a court of law, feelings don't matter. Stories don't matter. What matters is proof. And Harry had none. The cross-examination that exposed everything. If you want to understand why this case is collapsing, why Harry's legal team is in retreat, why damages are being reduced, why even his supporters are starting to question the strategy, you need to see what happened during cross-examination. Because this is where emotion meets reality, where narrative meets evidence, where stories have to become facts. and Harry's story didn't survive first contact. Anthony White KC, lead barrister for Associated Newspapers, is not someone you want questioning you. He's known in legal circles as methodical, precise, and absolutely relentless. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. He just asks questions, simple, direct questions, and lets the answers speak for themselves. When it was his turn to question Harry, the courtroom tension was palpable. Everyone knew this would be the make-or-break moment. White didn't start with the big accusations. He started small. He asked Harry about specific articles, specific dates, specific journalists. "Mr. Windsor," White said, using Harry's legal surname, "you've accused my clients of systematic harassment spanning nearly 2 decades. Can you point to a single instance of illegal news gathering?" Harry shifted in his seat. "The culture was intrusive. The methods were—" "That's not what I asked," White interrupted gently. "I asked for a specific instance, a date, a method, a journalist. Which article resulted from illegal activity?" Harry's answers grew vague. He talked about a culture of intrusion. He referenced emotional erosion and institutional silence. These are powerful words, no doubt. They sound compelling in the abstract, but White wasn't interested in abstractions. "Mr. Windsor, I'm going to ask again. Which journalist broke the law? When? How?" And Harry couldn't answer. Not specifically, not with evidence. Then came the moment that changed everything. The moment legal experts say may have doomed Harry's entire case. The defense presented exhibits, emails, party invitations, PR coordination notes, documents showing that many of the journalists Harry now accuses of harassment were once welcomed into his inner circle. There were photos of Harry posing with these journalists at events, emails from his press team arranging interviews and photo opportunities, text messages confirming meeting times and locations. In other words, these weren't predators stalking Harry against his will. They were professionals doing their jobs, jobs that Harry's own team had facilitated, encouraged, and sometimes even initiated. One particularly damning exhibit was an email from 2016. In it, Harry's then communications secretary reached out to one of the journalists now named in the lawsuit, inviting him to a polo match and suggesting it would be great to get some positive coverage of Harry's charitable work. The journalist attended. He wrote a glowing article, and now, years later, he's being sued for harassment. White read the email aloud in court, then looked up at Harry. "Mr. Windsor, you invited this man to cover your activities. Your team provided him access. He wrote favorably about you, and now you're suing him. Can you explain that?" Harry's response was telling. Context changes. Relationships change. What was acceptable then became weaponized later. But White wasn't done. He pulled out another exhibit, a guest list from a 2017 charity gala. Multiple journalists named in the lawsuit were on it. And next to their names, someone had written HP approved. H-N-P. Harry's initials. "Mr. Windsor," White said, his voice calm but devastating, "you personally approved these journalists' attendance at an event you hosted. You welcomed them. You posed for photos with them. And now you claim they harassed you?" The courtroom was silent. You could hear people shifting in their seats, the scratch of pens on notepads, the quiet murmur of realization spreading through the press benches. Because what White had just demonstrated, methodically, undeniably, was that Harry's accusations didn't hold up to scrutiny. Powerful words, sure. Compelling narrative, absolutely. But words that don't meet the legal threshold for intentional harm or unlawful conduct. One journalist cited in the lawsuit later spoke to the press outside the courthouse. His statement was simple but damning. "Harry, you invited me." And suddenly, the narrative flipped. What Harry had framed as predatory journalism was being reframed as selective memory, deciding after the fact that relationships once convenient were now criminal. Legal experts watching the trial now predict that portions of the case may be dismissed outright. Some believe Harry may walk away with a symbolic ruling at best, and no significant damages. Constitutional lawyer Nigel Pemberton told Sky News, "This is what happens when you bring a case built on emotion rather than evidence. The courtroom doesn't care about your feelings. It cares about facts, and the facts here don't support the allegations. Another legal analyst put it more bluntly. Harry came seeking vindication, but all he's proven is that he can't distinguish between journalism he doesn't like and journalism that's actually illegal. In other words, he came seeking justice, but he brought a story, not a case. The one person who should be there, but isn't. Now let's talk about the elephant not in the room, Meghan Markle, or rather, the Duchess-shaped hole where Meghan should be standing if this lawsuit were really the joint crusade for truth and justice that it was originally framed as. Because here's something most people don't realize. This lawsuit wasn't just Harry's idea. In fact, according to court documents that have now been entered into evidence, Meghan was arguably the driving force behind it. Let me walk you through the timeline, because it matters. As early as mid-2021, remember, this is before Harry's memoir, Spare, before the Netflix documentary, before most of the public drama we've witnessed, Meghan initiated multiple private audits of their press coverage. What does that mean? It means she hired companies to comb through thousands of articles, looking for potential legal violations. She was building a case file. She engaged a US-based media law consultancy firm, one of the best in the business, to analyze whether British tabloids had crossed legal lines. She encouraged Harry to compile what insiders called reputational threat dossiers, essentially collections of every negative story, every unflattering photo, every critical headline. Court records show Meghan's name appears in over 113 internal emails related to media claims, press responses, and litigation angles. She was CC'd on strategy memos. She participated in conference calls with legal teams. She reviewed draft complaints. In other words, Meghan wasn't just supportive of this lawsuit, she was a co-architect of the entire legal strategy. Multiple sources who worked with the Sussexes during this period confirmed that Meghan saw this lawsuit as their chance to finally hold the British media accountable, to prove, once and for all, that the coverage they endured wasn't just mean or unfair, but actually illegal. One former Archewell staffer told Vanity Fair, "Meghan was passionate about this. She felt like if they could win this case, it would validate everything they'd been saying about the toxicity of the British press. It was personal for her. So where is she now? Not in court, not testifying, not even releasing a statement of support. Let me paint you a picture of what Harry's days in court have looked like. He arrives each morning alone, through a side entrance to avoid the main press presence. No Meghan walking in beside him, no united front photo op. He sits alone at the plaintiff's table, flanked by lawyers but isolated from any personal support system. During breaks, court reporters have noted that he checks his phone frequently, presumably looking for messages of support or encouragement, but no one knows if he's receiving them. And at the end of each day, after hours of brutal cross-examination and public humiliation, he leaves alone. No Meghan waiting in a car, no hand to hold, no partner standing beside him in his moment of greatest vulnerability. The optics are terrible, and they're getting worse. Sources close to the Archewell Foundation, and it's telling that several of these sources are now on temporary leave, which usually means they're jumping ship before everything sinks, confirm that Meghan opted out of any official participation in the trial as early as October 2025. Why? According to one leaked internal memo that found its way to the Daily Mail, the reason was long-term brand preservation and emotional boundary setting. Let me translate that corporate speak for you. This might get messy, and she doesn't want the dirt on her shoes. The memo went on to state, "We do not recommend direct public involvement in any litigation that may result in reputational regression, moral ambiguity, or narrative contamination." Think about what that means. Meghan's team looked at this lawsuit, the one she helped initiate, the one she helped build, the one Harry is now fighting alone, and decided it was too risky for her brand. They saw which way the wind was blowing. They read the room, and they decided that Meghan needed to distance herself before the whole thing collapsed. It's one thing to support your spouse's legal battles from a distance. It's another to step back from your own husband's courtroom fight, especially when you helped start it. Public polling reflects what many are thinking, and it's not kind to Meghan. According to a January 24th YouGov flash poll, 62% of Britons believe Meghan's absence suggests lack of confidence in the case. 71% say her refusal to testify undermines their joint credibility. Only 11% believe she'll re-engage publicly before the trial ends. 58% say Meghan's absence has damaged the couple's moral consistency. Even among demographics that were previously sympathetic to the Sussexes, younger voters, women under 40, Americans, support is eroding. One American royal watcher put it this way on Twitter: Meghan talked a big game about standing up to the institution and speaking truth to power, but when it actually came time to back that up in court, where's she? Conspicuously absent. Even more telling? On day 5 of proceedings, during a short break, a reporter asked Harry directly as he was walking back into the courtroom, "Where's Meghan today?" Harry didn't respond. He didn't even acknowledge the question. Just kept walking, jaw clenched, eyes forward. But later that afternoon, during questioning about financial losses and the couple's various business ventures, Harry muttered something under his breath that was caught on the court audio system. The defense barrister had just asked about the Netflix deal and whether the lawsuit might generate content for future documentaries. Harry's response, quietly but audibly, "It wasn't her story to finish." 5 words, but they set social media on fire, because they suggest what many have suspected, that behind closed doors, a rift may be forming even between Harry and Meghan themselves. Was he saying the lawsuit wasn't Meghan's responsibility? Or was he saying something darker? That she'd started something she refused to finish? That she'd lit a fire and then walked away, leaving him to deal with the burns? We don't know. Harry hasn't clarified. Meghan certainly hasn't commented. But that one sentence, "It wasn't her story to finish," has been analyzed, dissected, and debated by everyone from tabloid columnists to body language experts to relationship therapists. One Archewell insider, speaking anonymously to The Guardian because they feared professional retaliation, put it even more bluntly: "She gave him the sword but refused to hold the shield." Think about that metaphor. Meghan armed Harry for this battle. She helped him build the case. She encouraged him to fight. But when it came time to actually step into the arena, to face cross-examination, to have her own claims tested under oath, to stand beside him when the cameras were rolling and the pressure was highest, she disappeared. And Harry is left holding that sword alone, with no shield to protect him from the blows raining down, while Harry litigates, William and Catherine lead. Here's where the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. While Harry was testifying in court about betrayal and inheritance, Prince William and Princess Catherine were in Aberdeen visiting a pediatric neurology unit and unveiling a £4.3 million public health fund. While Harry accused his family of conspiracy, Catherine was delivering a keynote at the Royal Foundation Early Years Summit, an initiative she's spent 4 years building. "Children don't learn by being told," she said in her speech. "They learn by what they see modeled every day: strength, steadiness, and empathy." Observers noted the layered meaning, but palace insiders insist it was purely mission-focused. Still, the message was unmistakable. This is what leadership looks like. William and Catherine haven't said a single word about Harry's lawsuit. Not publicly, not privately, not even through anonymous palace sources. They've simply continued working, visiting hospitals.
Cambridge went to a London area hospital today, but not because the pregnant royal is ready to give birth.
Instead, Kate Middleton made an appearance to open the redeveloped Children's Center at the hospital.
Supporting charities, showing up, and the public has noticed. Recent polling by Ipsos Mori shows Catherine, 78% approval rating, a record high. William, 76% approval, up 2 points since the trial began. Harry, 28% approval, down 4 points. Meghan, 19% approval, down 3 points. Do you see what's happening? By saying nothing, William and Catherine are saying everything. One royal historian put it perfectly, that silence in the face of provocation is power. The Anne Doctrine. 5 rules the monarchy will no longer break. Behind the scenes, Princess Anne has become something more than just a working royal. She's become the institutional voice of discipline, the one setting the boundaries that even the king seems hesitant to enforce. Palace insiders are now calling it the Anne Doctrine, a set of internal principles that reinforce the monarchy's ethical spine. Here are the 5 pillars. 1. Service before sentiment. Royals are servants of the crown, not activists. Personal emotions, no matter how valid, must not override the needs of the public. 2. Silence is not weakness, it's strength. The refusal to engage in media theatrics isn't avoidance, it's restraint in the face of provocation. 3. Legacy is earned, not demanded. Titles, inheritance, and symbolic roles are not owed by blood alone. They're granted through conduct and can be forfeited by betrayal. 4. No crown without character. The monarchy must hold itself to a higher ethical code. Deception, manipulation, or victimhood narratives have no place within the House of Windsor. 5. You leave by choice. You stay by conduct. Departing from royal duties isn't exile, but returning requires honor, humility, and accountability. During a recent Privy Council meeting, Anne reportedly said, "We are not a family soap opera. We are a constitutional pillar. If people forget that, they need to be reminded or removed." That's not a threat. It's a line in the sand. And polling shows the British public overwhelmingly agrees. 67% say the monarchy should distance itself entirely from Harry and Meghan during legal proceedings. 73% support Anne's position that royal roles must be tied to conduct, not genetics. Among those aged 35 and older, Sexoctave Procent say Princess Anne best represents the moral integrity of the monarchy. Anne's approval ratings now rival Catherine's, a rare feat, especially for someone who maintains a lower public profile and declines interviews altogether. The legal case is crumbling, and so is Harry's credibility. Let's be brutally honest about where this case stands legally. On January 26th, Harry's legal team filed a motion to amend their original claim, reducing total damages sought from £31.6 million to £18.7 million, and formally dropping the breach of confidence angle. That's not a strategic pivot. That's a retreat. Why? Because after a devastating week of cross-examinations, defense barristers disproved key timelines. Witnesses challenged Harry's allegations as emotionally driven but legally unsubstantiated. Evidence of harassment was shown to be social invitations, PR emails, and willingly shared access. Legal experts now predict that portions of the case may be dismissed outright before February, or at best result in a symbolic ruling with no significant damages awarded. In other words, Harry came seeking vindication, but he's walking away with public embarrassment. One former royal press officer observed, "He came seeking justice, but he brought emotion instead of evidence, and when asked to prove the harm, all he could point to was resentment." What happens next? And why? It changes everything. So where does this leave us? Harry is technically still the plaintiff in this case, but increasingly, he looks like the defendant, defending himself against his own contradictions. Meghan has fully disengaged, reportedly focusing on a spring 2026 U.S. brand relaunch with no royal references. Projects include a children's series on empowerment, a fashion capsule with a European label, and a possible second memoir described as a reclamation of self, not history. But critics see it differently. As one royal biographer remarked, "She set the house on fire and left Harry inside with the matches." Meanwhile, the monarchy stands united, not through press releases, but through presence. Since January 20th, William and Catherine have visited displaced women's shelters in Newcastle, held roundtables on police trauma recovery in Croydon, attended a Holocaust memorial event at Westminster Abbey, launched Catherine's Shaping Us Early Childhood Initiative in Yorkshire. In none of these appearances did they mention Harry. They didn't need to. The Sovereign Index's latest survey asked, "Who best represents the values of the modern monarchy?" The top answers by wide margin: Catherine, William, and Princess Anne. Inside Clarence House, royal sources confirm that Operation Quiet Tether, The strategy of containing fallout while reaffirming duty will remain in place indefinitely. As one senior advisor said, "This is not exile, this is consequence." Even King Charles, known for his emotional temperament, has made no overture. According to sources, he has come to peace with the idea that reconciliation, if it comes, must come without public leverage or courtroom accusations. Princess Anne's final word, and it's devastating. At an informal gathering at the Royal Naval College 2 days ago, Princess Anne was asked off the record whether she felt the family had failed Harry. Her answer was short, quiet, but resolute. "We didn't fail him. We just stopped following him." That single sentence has since been printed on the front page of 3 major UK papers and shared more than 4 million times across platforms. It is, in many ways, the closing argument the monarchy never made, but didn't need to, because here's the truth that's becoming impossible to ignore. Harry may yet win a partial judgment in this case, but the monarchy, silent, stable, and unshaken, has already won something larger: the loyalty of its people, the credibility of its heirs, and the moral ground that cannot be litigated, the legacy that can't be claimed in court. Let me leave you with this thought. Legacy isn't something you claim through lawsuits. It's not something you demand in courtrooms or extract through public accusations. Legacy is what you earn through silence when others expect you to scream, through service when others expect you to sulk, through presence when others expect you to retreat. Princess Catherine hasn't said a single word in her own defense. She's just kept showing up, visiting cancer centers, launching mental health initiatives, being there for the people who need her most. Prince William hasn't issued a rebuttal. He's just kept building the future, focusing on homelessness, environmental conservation, and preparing to be king. Princess Anne hasn't dignified the accusations with a response. She's just kept working. More royal engagements than anyone else in the family year after year, without complaint. And the British public has noticed, because at the end of the day, you can accuse people of anything. But you can't fake decades of service. You can't litigate away someone else's credibility when it's built on action, not words. Harry came to court seeking vindication, but what he's found instead is isolation from his family, from his support system, and increasingly from the public that once adored him. The palace said it best in that original statement. The Crown does not participate in disputes born of personal grievance. They're not going to fight Harry in court. They're not going to defend themselves in the media. They're just going to keep being the monarchy, steady, silent, and unshakable. And in doing so, they've already won. What do you think? Has Harry gone too far this time? Is Meghan's absence a betrayal or smart strategy? And can the Sussexes ever come back from this? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to stay updated on this story as it develops, hit that subscribe button, because this royal drama is far from over. But one thing is certain: the monarchy isn't breaking. It's just stopped bending.